Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. I am Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Jonny is still spinning on those ones and twos.
Fam.
Yes.
So we have a very special guest. We have an actual poll worker who was just gotten done being trained in LA County. And he approached us because he had very, very huge concerns with the way they were being trained and these kind of inconsistencies with what we have all been told will take place in the California primary, not only with what we've been told, but also what the media has been told. Pasta and I attended a meeting in June of last year, and we were asking a lot of questions, and some of those questions that we particularly asked never were answered.
Yep.
And so this whole process has been made to be very easy, new. It's going to be okay. It's going to be a breeze. You have more days to vote. You can vote in any precinct. Even if you don't live in Pasadena, you can vote in Pasadena. It's been made to feel very secure. Oh, you can register on the same day.
Yep.
You can change your registration.
Yep.
You can be a new voter. It's been, okay, this is ponies. This is great. This is wonderful. Not the case. And we are going to break this down here. And this is extremely important for us to get right.
I just want to say something before we get started. If anybody would share any type of stream ever, this is the one to share.
This is the one to share.
Please get that out there. We see a lot of faces familiar who are really concerned about this. Everybody share this right now because this is our democracy that is at hand over here. So, fam, go ahead and start us off.
So we have our friend here. He's in the studio, but we're going to call him John because we don't want to get this person in any trouble, and we don't trust the California Democratic Party not to do that. Now, Dean Logan has already been saying, with the help of other so-called journalists, that I am spreading misinformation. The problem with saying that is that we have the poll worker here, and we also have something that cannot be denied, is the book. The book and the images that direct these trained poll workers to act accordingly. So, John, you messaged us, and you began by alerting us about the ID situation because we have been kind of told that, you know, this is going to be a smooth process. And you mentioned that if you are a newly registered voter as of 4 years ago since the last election, and that you've changed your registration in any way, shape, or form, and if you're a new voter, you are going to need an ID. Is this correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. What's happening is that there's, on page 19 of the e-poll book guide, there's directions on how to process new voters. And a new voter is not just someone who has never voted before. It's someone who has changed their registration, changed their address. If you've made any change to your voter registration between the last election and now, you must bring an ID with both your name and address on it that match exactly to your registration, or you will be given a provisional ballot.
Okay. This is not in lavote.org. It's not on any media.
That's lavote.net. It's nowhere on the website at all. Voters are not being informed that they have to bring an ID to the polls. And this can create massive chaos in our elections. And that's why I'm bringing this forward. The first thing that they had us do when we entered the training was stand up and raise our right hand to protect the Constitution and the integrity of our election. And that is why I'm here today.
So, okay, so let's break this down then. What happened when you said, oh, well, this isn't anywhere for people to find out. Nobody's talking about this. How did these people react when you said that?
Well, any questions were primarily just shut down. There was a very hostile environment with the trainers. They really didn't want any questions that put out their authority over the voting process.
Right.
When I brought up the question about how this can affect millions of voters, they just brushed it off as if it weren't important. And then I said, but This information is nowhere on your website. Voters have no way to know about having to bring an ID to the polls, and their response was, we'll look into it.
Okay, and so I'm going to bring this up because there is a KTLA article out there that was talking about, oh, you can now, Gavin Newsom has signed into law that you can register the same day, and you can change your registration. This is the first time. It's so great. What about that? Are they still going to get provisional ballots if they register the day of?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, you can register the same day. You can change your party the same day. All that is great steps forward, but you will still receive a provisional ballot.
Yeah, that wasn't advertised. No, I want to stick on the IDs for a second.
Yes.
You said there's a lot of IDs. There's a list of IDs.
Yes.
But you also said something about the addresses that
Yes.
have to match. Can you give us a little detail about that?
Sure. There's a whole list of IDs, about 30 different types of IDs you can bring.
Do you mind showing that to the camera?
Sure.
Hey, yeah. Got it. It's the other page is not. Which page?
It's page 40.
This one?
Yes.
Can you see that, John?
There's a whole list of IDs that you can show, but it must match your name and address exactly, and voters are not being informed about this.
Not at all.
They can show up to the poll and find out right then that they need to show an ID. So then they'd have to either get a provisional ballot or come back with an ID that matches.
Yes.
So if someone has, for example, a P.O. box on their driver's license, they would not be able to use their driver's license as a proper ID. It would have to be something that has the address that matches with the registration in the computer.
Yeah.
Okay, so this obviously is going to target people who live in mobile homes, poor people, people who are in between homes, and of course, new voters.
Yeah.
And
Or
obviously,
someone who just moved.
Yeah,
exactly.
let's say, people who never changed their ID because I don't drive, I don't have a car, so I haven't changed my address.
So some of us, 4 years ago, we exited, right? And we left the Democratic Party in protest because of this very same reason. And we became independents or Green Party. Then what we did was register as Democrats recently because we want to make sure there's no shenanigans. So you're saying that if you changed or altered your registration at any point, even if you've been voting for the last 50 years, you're saying that you're still going to have to show an ID.
Everyone who is re-registered will have to show an ID with your name and address on it.
Yeah.
I specifically asked this question twice because when I found out about this, it was like being struck by lightning. It was like the wind went out of my lungs and I was like, oh my God, this is how they're going to steal the election. I asked twice, I said, so you're telling me that if I've been voting for 20 or 30 years and I was one party and I changed to another party, and I'm still going to have to bring an ID. And the response was, even if you've been voting for 80 years and you had any change at all to your registration, you will need to show an ID.
Okay, so wait a minute. Isn't this the Republican thing to do? Isn't this what the Democrats harp on the Republicans for demanding IDs? Because guess what? Older people aren't going to have it. New voters aren't going to have it. Poor people aren't going to have it. So isn't this like pretty much applying what goes on in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia?
I was concerned. I said, this could affect millions of voters. And the response was, yes.
And I just like to say that, if you want to have the argument that you need to bring ID, then we need to be told that. We were told during the KDEM elections that, that's the Republican thing to do, to check IDs, whatnot, because there was even progressives that are saying, you guys are busting in so many people's, maybe we should go to IDs. Now, this is very contradictory to what they said before, contradictory of what they said before. So I just want to point that out. They have never been told.
Yeah, so if you're a new voter, which is someone who has been pre-registered, but then this is the first election they voted in, they must show ID from the start or they get a provisional ballot. Let's just put
That's correct.
Okay.
The poll workers have on their screen. Now the computer decides who gets what ballot.
Okay, here we go.
And
Yes.
when there's a new voter, which can be someone who has never voted before, someone who's changed their registration, they all get clumped into this new voter category. There's two buttons. One says ID provided, the other says ID not provided, or no ID provided.
Right.
If you do not provide an ID, then there's a big red bar that goes across the screen that says provisional. And
I think we have those pictures, Johnny, if you want to show them.
And when your ballot is printed at the voter check-in, it's the same ballot for everyone, except there's a QR code in the corner.
Okay.
And I can...
Here.
There you go.
Okay.
There's a little QR code up in the corner.
This isn't what's printed when you first do the machine, you print it yourself. It's going to be a completely blank. The QR code won't be there.
Yes, when you check in,
it's going to look like that without a QR code.
It's going to be a blank with no QR code at the corner. Once you check in, the poll worker will put the blank ballot into their printer, and it will print this QR code. Now, this QR code will tell the ballot marking device, which is a separate computer that you vote on, whether or not this is a regular ballot or a provisional ballot.
Okay.
Moreover, what I found out in the training, which is very scary, is that through this QR code, they can identify who the voter is.
Okay, now listen, I've been in front of Jeff Klein. We've heard Dean Logan say this stuff. They said they won't be able to identify the voter with the QR code. So what you're telling me is that they told you plain and simple that this will identify the voter himself.
They admitted that back at the county clerk office, they can identify the voter with that QR code. Now, there are two QR codes that go on this ballot. The first one identifies the type of ballot and links that to the specific voter. The second QR code is printed on the ballot underneath with how you voted.
Okay.
So you put in your selections and you put the ballot into the computer, it prints another QR code.
Let me see the book that has the second QR code on it so we can show our viewers there. It's right on the front cover, I believe, right? We had one.
I think I took a picture of it, Johnny.
With two QR codes we're looking for right now.
Yeah,
the second QR code comes when you put your paper through the machine and it spits it out, is what you're saying.
Yes, and so through this, they are able to identify both the voter and also how you vote is also printed for that paper trail. They do have the votes printed on the ballot itself. So with the ballot, you can identify the voter to how they voted.
Yeah.
Okay. And so basically the computer is going to print these individual ballots with the individual QR codes for each person. So if you have no ID, the computer is going to prompt to provisional. A new voter with provisional without ID. Yes. Same day registration, provisional.
Yes.
In all those instances, it's provisional, and nobody is talking about that. Nobody is saying anything about provisional. They are acting as if you're just going to show up there, register, and vote, and you're going to be able to get a regular Democratic ballot. That is not the case, and we should be screaming this off everywhere, because this is how it's going to be rigged. Here we go.
Here's the second
Johnny has
QR
the other
code. Did you have that up there? You can see right here on that screen where it comes out. That's the second QR code that comes out. So there are two QR codes per ballot once the ballot's done. Now, fam, you know what else John Doe told me over here? He told me that the voter's not going to know it's a provisional ballot until after it's done, when the machine refuses to take the vote and you have to put it in a pink envelope. So now, please explain that.
Well, that's technically not correct. Let me just fix that. Yes, the voter will be told that it's a provisional ballot, and they will have to fill out the pink envelope to put the ballot in
at the end.
No, when they check in.
Okay.
But if they try to vote that vote at the ballot marking device, the machine will reject that ballot at the end.
I see.
And so you'll be forced to vote provisionally.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry I misunderstood you there.
Now, there's another problem with the ballot marking devices. They are very fragile. And we were instructed that you must put your ballot into the slot with both hands to make sure that it doesn't jam.
And this is the voter.
This is the voter. The voters will be the ones handling the ballot. The poll workers will not be handling their ballots. So the voter who has no training on these machines will have to carefully put these ballots into the device, and they are very prone to jamming. We actually had a poll worker, 1 out of 3 poll workers, jam the machine at our training.
Johnny, you have that little picture I sent over there now. It says it's frequent more than the legal ramifications, and you can see right there it says pretty much it has to be within a 1 to 500 rate. In other words, it can only jam 1 per 500 for it to be legal. These machines jam at 1 to 103 rate, and there it is right there. So technically, and you said out of 3 times you saw it jam right away.
Yes.
Now, forget about the craziness it's going to cause and the lines and the backup that it's going to cause. It's technically illegal.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. And this is just, I just can't, I'm just, I can't right now with this.
We haven't gotten into the hacking part yet.
So the poll worker is just following prompts. So the only people this isn't going to affect then is people who have not changed their registration since the last election.
Exactly.
Correct. Everybody else who decided to make any sort of change will have to bring an ID.
If you went Republican to Green or Libertarian to Democrat or however you decide,
Yeah.
you will have to show an ID to update your registration.
Okay. What about the whole process of the thing that stores the ballots? Walk us through the process about the chain of custody, which is supposed to be observed. First of all, how many ballots does each machine hold?
Well, they're supposed to hold 250 ballots before being changed, but we were told they will only hold 200. And they will need to be emptied and changed at every 200 ballots. But from what I've witnessed, it won't even reach 200 before there's a jam.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Each machine will jam before it can be technically
And
unloaded.
throughout the process, whether it's opening the poll center, whether it's midday checks, whether it's closing, whether it's jamming and resetting machines, you need to scan barcodes, security codes for a chain of custody so there's no tampering with the machines or the ballots. And the problem with this is that poll workers are not trained on how to use the scanners.
Okay.
Only one person is.
Only the lead. We were throughout the entire 8-hour training. We were told about scanning this, scanning that, scanning throughout the day. When the question was brought up about we have not received training on how to use the scanner itself, the response was, well, are you a lead? If not, you don't need to use it.
Wow.
How many people were training with you that day? Because everything that needs to be in place with these jammings, with these changing, they need about, 50 poll workers to 100 poll workers? Yeah.
Well, there were approximately 30 people training that day, and there are multiple trainings going on throughout the county. But there are 3 types of poll centers. There's the large, medium, and small. So a large center will have 50 machines, a medium center will have 30 machines, and a small center will have 10 machines. Depending on which center you're at will depend on how many poll workers are there. However, with what I witnessed with the problems with jamming, this could tie up machines throughout the day and cause delays and chaos throughout the entire voting process.
Wow. I mean, this is, thank you for letting us know, because this is the most important thing. So now you talked about the stages of barcodes for opening, closing, midday checks, all of the paper jams, and that they're not trained. Do you know who chooses who these leads are, or are you not sure about that?
No information was given.
Okay. So from your observation, though, there's going to be a digital overload, you would say, with maybe possible errors at certain steps.
Although the whole system is designed for human error.
Mm-hmm.
There's anything that can go wrong at any time throughout the voting process, and it will all be due to human error of slip-ups, and it feels almost as if it's designed intentionally so.
Okay. What did your friend say the other day when he walked in? You said you talked to a poll
Yes,
worker.
another poll worker and I were having lunch together, and I asked what he thought during lunch, and he said, I have more concerns now than when I did when I walked in the door this morning.
That's terrible.
Okay.
What about the chain of custody now, as far as cutting the ribbons, what's supposed to happen, and what you were instructed? Because I understand there's a seal there on the voting machine which holds the ballots that has a code on it that needs that there's a proper chain of custody in which this needs to happen. Could you break down a little bit of that?
Sure. There's a seal and there's a zip tie. The zip tie will have a barcode on it. and the seal will not. So the seal seems as if it could just be changed at any time without any chain of custody to the stick seal itself. But the zip tie, we were actually giving contradictory information during the training. Throughout the training, we were told that whenever you put a seal on or whenever you break a seal, you must scan the seal with scanners that we were not trained on to protect the chain of custody. But then when we were being trained on how to fix the paper jam, the trainer told us, no, we don't have to scan the barcode when we're taking it off, only when we put a new one on.
Okay, so just this kind of goes along with that, though. So even though the voting machines, the ballot marking devices, won't be connected to the internet, the e-poll book computers used to check the voters in will, and these are connected to central databases, correct?
Correct.
Which whoever has access to that could access real voter information in real time.
Yes, exactly. The entire voter database will be transmitted through the internet to the e-poll books, not to the ballot marking devices themselves, which will be offline, but all of the voter information will be accessible through the internet. Now, of course, the e-poll books have security codes to check in, and you have to check in, but they will be open and online for 12 hours a day for 11 days straight.
Okay.
So it raises a concern of, are these hackable? And if they are, then everyone's voting information could be subject to a hack.
Did you notice any of the USB kind of areas on the machine, or did they have them covered up because...
I didn't notice the USB stuff.
Okay, and just like to wrap up here, just transporting these ballots, right? What happens when they transport it? You don't have too much information on that yet, I'm assuming?
At the end of each day, the ballot boxes are emptied and put in basic cardboard boxes that are transported by the vote center lead to a counting station. So it was unclear how the votes were going to be counted, whether it would be through the computer that's not connected to the internet, or if they would be counted at a separate station. It was unclear how the counting was going to be done. But another thing that is very important is that when you're casting your ballot on the screen, there's going to be multiple pages with candidates, and there is a very small more button at the top and the bottom, so you can scroll. Each page will only have 4 candidates. So if you have an election with, say, 15 or 20 candidates, you may have to scroll through multiple pages before being able to find your candidate. And while we were giving training on the ballot marking devices, the poll trainer told us that this does give an advantage to the candidates on the first page.
Yeah. We don't even know about the circulation that's going on with these. Remember how they'll circulate the names at the top? I'm assuming Bernie Sanders.
Bernie's is at the bottom. From mine, actually.
From yours.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another question though about the tally thing. You said the votes are put into a cardboard box and taken to a tallying station. Is there any tally whatsoever at the polling station that you know about so that they can cross-reference or get an idea about, you know what I'm saying? Is there any checks and balances that way? Or is it like we don't know the number of the count, it's set off?
We weren't given information. From what I've heard through the press is that they will be counted by the machine with the QR code, but then we also have the ballot itself that can be counted. The ballot's going to be sent to a different center for counting, so I don't know how the counting is going to work.
Yeah, and they should count them all. They should absolutely count them all by hand because obviously these machines are easily just not secure. They're just not secure. We don't even have to say they're going to get hacked. Or we can say they're not secure at all.
Yeah.
But I might add that the overwhelming concern that I have is about the IDs and people being issued provisional ballots.
Absolutely.
Because as we know in 2016, over 600,000 provisional ballots simply were not counted.
Yes.
There's a two-step over 600,000.
Right.
And I've heard reports that it might have been even 750,000 votes were not counted in the primary of 2016. Yeah. Now, what a provisional ballot does is it creates a two-step process to deny a person their vote. The first one is at the poll where they're given a different ballot than everyone else. So it throws their vote into question. The second is when those provisional ballots are brought to the county wherever they do the counting, then it has to go through another check of whether they're going to count it or not. And if what happens this year happens like it did in 2016, the clock is just going to run out before they even get around to it, and they may just not even get to the provisional ballots at all.
Now, just for argument's sake, because people are saying that certain people are saying you don't get a provisional ballot, you just get a ballot that has 30 days to be counted if you change your registration. You're telling me that they told you they get a provisional ballot.
Yes, and the only difference that you will find in the provisional ballot and a regular ballot is this QR code that's printed on the top.
There's no red here.
There's no red.
There's no red.
There's no red. It's a computerized code, and the computer, if you try to cast your ballot at the polling place, it will reject the ballot, and you must put it into a pink envelope, which will be separate from all the other ballots.
So even if the poll worker wants to be like, okay, here's a Democratic ballot, the computer will reject it.
Yes.
So this is very important to note, you guys, because even if the poll worker's like, you're right, yeah, let me give you a Democratic ballot, the computer will reject it.
There is no Democratic ballot. There's no Republican ballot. All the ballots are exactly the same. They get printed individually as you check in.
Right, and depending on the code you have and who you are, it's either going to require provisional or
and that
not.
QR code will tell the computer what primary you're voting in, whether it's Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green. That QR code will decide what you get to vote on.
Yeah. I can just see like an older lady going, not being told it's a provisional ballot, giving it to her, going to vote and say, it won't take it back. Oh, we'll take care of that. No problem, and walk out. That's what I was talking about with the provisional ballots, because they're instructed to tell people it's a provisional ballot, but what's going to stop them from not and just taking that and putting it off to the side? Do you have another question? Because I have one question about the tallying.
Yeah, I do have another question. But
well, I don't think there'll be anything that nefarious going on.
Yeah.
If someone has a provisional ballot that's rejected by the machine, and it will be if it's a provisional ballot, we are instructed to put them into a pink envelope.
Yeah.
But the question is, will those ballots even be counted?
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree.
I just want to go over exactly what can we do, because we need solutions as quick as they can. So vote by mail, best thing to do. They have to the 18th to be able to register to vote by mail.
Walk it in?
No, not even walk it in. You can just turn it in, drop it in, because you have with vote by mail. This is my vote by mail ballot. You have at least a paper trail here, which you don't necessarily in the computer, because they might not count it. And that's a printout, and we don't know how that's going to go. So I would recommend everybody, like the Bernie Sanders campaign has been doing so, to vote by mail. Now, I'm still iffy on where these ballots are going to go and how they're going to be counted.
Somebody suggested,
Well,
to walk it in.
You're absolutely right. A paper ballot is our most secure voting system. And something that we didn't touch on that you just reminded me about was that on the conditional certification of this voting system, it was declared that voters have the right to demand a paper ballot at the polls.
Yes.
The poll worker trainer said no, that paper ballots will not be offered. That was part of their test run in November, which that is completely false, because those conditions came out just a month ago.
Right.
So if I did have my ballot, my mail-in ballot, and I wanted to walk it in, did they instruct you?
Yes.
So there's a spot where you can go put it.
Exactly. There are many places we can deliver our mail-in ballot to. There will be a special box at each voting center where you can drop off your mail-in ballot. And one good thing is that someone else can drop your ballot off for you. It doesn't have to be you yourself.
Exactly. Yes. I think they're doing that. Some of the Bernie Sanders campaign are like kind of delivering ballots in for people and stuff. So I just want to reiterate about the tallying, though. There's no tally printout of each machine when it's removed. There's no checks and balance there, or
yes, there is. At the end of the day, there is a report that is printed of the machine. and that report goes with the machine behind the screen and is left there overnight. So the next morning, when they're opening up the poll center, they can verify the numbers from the closing report to the morning's opening report. Now, one problem is that these machines will be left in place for 11 days with no security overnight.
Wow. Okay.
Doesn't that break the chain of custody? Or no?
If there's a bad actor, someone could come in. When I raised this question with the poll trainers, it was a fairly hostile response of, what, you want security guards at every poll center?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 300 million
we want a
per year.
fair
What'd you do with it?
shake, guys. We want a fair election. That's
Oh, my
all we're
Lord.
asking for. That's all we're asking for. So another thing that people could do, I'm guessing, is vote early as possible, right?
Because with the voter ID that we have to give, which is shocking to me.
Yeah, that's progressive California.
If you come in to vote in one of the early days and you discover this and you're not able to come back that day, you can always have the option of coming back another day with a proper ID. But what I fear is going to happen is that the majority of the voters will turn out only on March 3rd on the day of the election itself, and maybe they have an hour off from work, they're at a lunch break or something, and they can't come back, and they find out in that moment that they need an ID. Well, those voters are more likely than not just going to throw their hands up in the air and say, oh, well, give me a provisional ballot then because I can't come back.
Yeah. So we need to encourage everybody to vote early to discover how this process is going to go. And if this pushes these officials to get in line, and I mean get in line, I mean do their jobs and give us fair elections, then I'm all for it. And if all of this changes, what he's telling me right now, all of a sudden changes tomorrow and they're like, oh no, everything's cool. We did our job. But for people to say that this isn't true is ludicrous. We have the poll work, the books that he brought, and we have all the outlines of how this process is going to go. And we also have 2016 and the knowledge of what happened then, not only in California, but in multiple states. And we also have what just happened in Iowa, in the inconsistencies in New Hampshire, and what may or may not happen in South Carolina and another Nevada caucus. So if maybe we're being on hyper alert, I would rather be that than rely on the system that has been proven to be corrupt. By the way, Alex Padilla is still Secretary of State. And Dean Logan, of course, who was found to have tampered with an election.
King County, he has a
in
history
King
of this.
County,
He should never been hired.
Is also in charge. So these people who have been proven to be corrupt are in charge of these situations. Please, I don't know who would trust them over everybody else trying to get a fair shake. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for doing this. Is there anything else you want to let the people know?
Just make sure that you're well informed when you come out to vote. Make sure that you know that you need to have an ID. And let people know. We need to spread the word. That's the most important thing, getting the word out.
Have a power bill to have different forms of ID. If you're gonna, but once again, I'm going to go on. I'm going to change to vote by mail, and I'm going to walk it in. That's what I feel safe with. And even still, that's... And once again, this is only the tip of the iceberg. And we'll give more information after how it goes down and whatnot. So if you have anything to come back with us, Mr. John Doe, would you do so?
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you poll work in 2016 too, or?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I poll worked in 2012, so I saw how the old system worked compared to the new system.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had much more confidence in the optical scanners.
It seems like it's the same thing as 2016 all over again, where they don't give proper training. There's a level of incompetence, so therefore they can eliminate your vote and say it wasn't a proper vote because, through the poll working system, because they're not giving the proper training.
Okay, hold on.
Fan, what do you got?
This is the e-poll book guide, okay? Just so you guys know, we're not lying. Like, this is, what was the page on? It was
Page
on
19 and 20.
19 to 20. Hold on. Okay, got it. So there we go. Because people want to say this is not true. This is all true. And we posted some of these pictures.
No ID provided. If no ID was provided.
Provisional. Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure people know that this is in their instructions.
They're going to use LA as a target to screw us again.
Oh, LA is the worst. Now, this varies by county, so they might be doing something completely different in Orange County. Yeah. This is a ballot marking device. This is all about the machine that you're going to use, right? And this is just going to go, we don't have time to go through the whole thing, but yeah. So, oh, okay.
If you see that little dot at the bottom right there,
yes.
That's the size of the more button. That little dot there, that's the size of the more button that you have to scroll with. And it's very easy to miss.
I don't have long arms, sorry. Yeah. Okay. And then what else have we got? We got this is just the election guide.
And on the back page is where you get to see the types of IDs.
IDs you need right there.
So
that small page right there.
This right here. These are the types of IDs.
Yeah. Now, this stuff is without even just looking over the testing that was done to the machines itself and how hackable they are. That's a whole nother level, you know. And some of these activists are saying this is an illegal. We cannot use this machine. We have to stop this because this is completely wrong. It's illegal. Alex Padilla verified a system that does not work. It's bad, you know. And now you have all these other, and this is from the perspective of a poll worker. So this is, somebody said this is very nuanced and complicated. It is, because they're going to screw you 17 different ways till Tuesday, fam.
Yeah, so that's the thing. This is complicated. And it like, even knowing this and after talking to you several times and just figuring this out, it's still complicated for a regular person that's not politically engaged, that just wants to do their civil duty and go vote. This makes people not want to vote. And this is why, this is the argument some people use. Oh, stop talking about that because it's going to make people
not vote.
It's going to not count if they vote and they can't vote. If they go vote, they're not going to vote, period.
We
so
know who they are.
It's far more important
Stupid.
to get people to actually understand everything they need to do. So come that day, they are prepared. And it's unfortunate that we have to go through all these hoops, that we have to jump through all these hoops in order to actually vote, which is the most basic thing you can do as a citizen of a country. Yeah. I mean, it's insane. It's insane at this point.
And let me say this much.
Enraging.
If the truth blows it up, then so be it. The truth must be told.
Yeah,
So if it's blowing it up, I'm sorry. The truth must be told. And this is legit. We got receipts, and we were right before about Iowa. We were right about New Hampshire. We got the fugaziness over there, too, as well. I mean, one might be worse than the other. This is looking really bad.
Yeah.
But if the truth blows it up, then so be it. Thank you for speaking the truth today, John Doe.
Yeah. Thank you. Reminder, California, we have 394 delegates up for grabs. I mean, not all of those are going to be, some of them are going to be appointed, but we need to make sure that we get as many delegates as possible, because this is, if they even make it so the delegate numbers are close, again, we're going to go to a contested convention and the super delegates are there ready to take control. This is how they take it. There's so many candidates for a reason. They're all going to combine their delegates and they're going to go up against Bernie Sanders. I'm telling you right now, this is how it's done. And we have to continue being almost nauseating about this stuff constantly. Thank you so much for being here.
Johnny, anything else? John Doe, thank you for being here. For Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
Johnny Sue and the ones and twos, Johnny Doe, the poll worker, exposing.
Share, please. Convo out.
Call Dean Logan. Tell him to get out of there.